Welcome back to Things of Gold, a Snarky Puppy podcast by Storm Sound and Osiris Media. My name is Ryan Storm.
And I'm Megan Gliona.
And we're back here for episode 8. Today, our final episode of the Culcha Vulcha era of the band. We are here in February 2018. Today, we are going to be talking about February 17th, 2018 from Raleigh. I looked up the pronunciation this time, so I made sure it's correct.
I was really
Raleigh,
hoping
North
you
Carolina.
mispronounce it again.
Yeah, you know what? We had our fun with that in episode 1, and then I think last episode 2 when I talked about what show was going to be for this episode. It's a hard word to pronounce or to remember the correct pronunciation of.
I can see that. I have a connection to this town, so it's not hard for me. But I can see how, being Canadian, this would stick out. Mm-hmm.
Listen, I bet you couldn't pronounce some places in Canada, so
I guarantee I can't. Yeah.
there you go. It's just
There's some
nobody
indigenous
plays
names of things that are probably very tricky for me.
Yeah, nobody plays shows in Canada, so that's never really an issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this show is from one of my favorite months of Snarky Puppy ever. February 2018 is an incredible run for them. You know, it starts with the Ground Up Festival in Miami, and then they play like a 3-week tour, which I think had like no days off on it.
Wow.
Like
I'm
I'm
crazy.
gonna double check now because I'm pretty sure that there are no days off on this tour, but like they literally played for 3 weeks and played every single day.
That sounds so exhausting. I can't even believe that.
Yeah, it's kind of insane to do that much touring. Okay, so they played at the Ground Up Festival on February 9th, 10th, and 11th, and then started in Atlanta on February 14th. Okay, 2 nights in Atlanta. Then February 16th in Nashville. February 17th in Raleigh. I already messed it up. That's right. February 18th in Maryland. And then February 19th in Colorado.
Whoa.
I guess they flew out to Colorado. Then they played 3 shows in Colorado. Then, they had 1 day off. They had February 22nd off. And then they played in Nebraska. And then Portland, Oregon. And then Seattle. And then down to Southern California for a couple of shows. Oh, and then they had February 28th off before a residency at the SF Jazz Fest. They did 6 shows in 4 days, which is
wow.
Cool.
And most of those days off, and most of those days they're traveling too.
Yeah, that's a grueling tour.
Well, they sounded tight, I have to say.
Yeah,
we were talking a little bit beforehand, before we went on. I absolutely loved the show.
This is an impressive lineup. They do sound amazing. This is our first show with Jameson Ross on drums as well. Hearing him out there for the first time. But we've got today Chris Bullock on tenor sax, Mike Mazmaher on trumpet, flugelhorn, and vocals, Justin Stanton on trumpet and keyboards, Bill Lawrence on keyboards, Sean Martin on keyboards, Mark Lettieri on guitar, Michael League on bass, Jameson Ross on drums and vocals, and Nate Worth on percussion. Sean is back on the B3, everybody. Haven't heard him in that role since episode 1. Exciting to hear.
Yeah, this show was great. And this venue, I was trying to remember if I've been there before. I spent some time in Raleigh, North Carolina. My parents moved down there to Cary, which is like a suburb outside of it. And so in between college, for a few summers, I waitressed there, and I saw a lot of live music in Raleigh, and I love seeing music down there. Bands seem to just play really well down there. There's amazing fish shows from there.
kidding.
It's just a special place to see music. And I looked at the venue. I can't remember if I've been there or not. It's been renovated since, so it's hard to tell, but it's got a capacity of about 1,400, and it looks like a pretty awesome place now. It looks pretty newly renovated and really fun space, just open. There's like a balcony around the edges, but otherwise just GA, and looks really fun. I have a feeling I may have been there, but I can't remember for what.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
So this is cool. This lineup is also cool because it's similar to the lineup that we heard in the last episode. We have a different guitar player, different drums, but otherwise it's the same. But the biggest difference being you have Sean on organ. So instead of having just like Rhodes and 2 layers of synth in the keys section, you now have Justin synth, Bill Rhodes, and Sean organ in a lot of cases. So that especially comes out in the opening Whitecap, where you
Ugh.
have these layers of the three distinct layers of keyboards throughout this whole song, which is it sounds so amazing immediately.
Yeah, it's super dreamy and it just builds like great tension underneath. The intro is just, it's so gorgeous. The drums and the percussion are like perfectly complementing each other right away. They sound incredibly like locked in.
Yeah, it's I mean, Whitecap is one of my favorite openers. We've heard it open shows a couple of times in the series or show up a few times. But also, this is a great contrast from the one in the last episode we heard with a very similar lineup. Because last episode, we talked a lot about in that the end of that South American tour, how the show had a very relaxed vibe. Much more laid
Hmm.
back. They come out of the gate here. They're like 4 shows into this tour, I believe. But it's aggressive from the jump. They're going for it and you know do they ever go for it? Like it sounds so good here. um you get Sean throwing in some nice little moog underneath the horns towards the beginning. Sounds really, really great. Mark, of course. Have we heard from him recently? I don't think we've had Mark.
Oh,
It's
he's
been a little
so
while.
great. He's so great in this show.
Yeah.
I love what he's doing in that section. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's that amazing, very distinctive Mark Lettieri rhythm guitar work in that first break. Um, yeah, I just realized we haven't seen Mark since episode 4, so it's been a little while.
Oh, it's been a long time. He sounds like this whole version of this song sounds so like reassured and cool. It's so textured and rich. There's something about this version. I think it's my favorite version of the song that I've heard so far.
Amazing. And we get a nice solo from Maz towards the end, a little drum break. What's cool here as well is Maz takes it on flugelhorn, and there are no effects. He's just ripping the flugelhorn, which is cool to hear because Maz and Bullock a lot of the time their solos are very effects driven. So it's nice to hear them come out with this clean sound. You get to appreciate their playing a little bit more, which is cool.
Yeah, it's definitely beautiful to hear them when they go clean. I think just stands out how incredible they are as musicians.
Yep. And then we move into Grown Folks. Obviously this song is just incredibly funky. I love the way they come in with the intro here. The keys, Mark and Michael, all just like funking it up, which sounds amazing. Bill throwing some delay on the Rhodes, which sounds so cool. Yeah, wow.
It's so funky, like right away. I love it. It's just like they're not wasting any time. They're just getting right into it.
Hmm.
And it's cool what Mark's doing. He's like echoing kind of a little bit of what like the horns are doing. And it just sounds incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Michael doing some incredible fills underneath the horns there. And we get, one of my favorite grown folks solo combinations, which is Mark on the main solo and then Sean on the outro. Mark puts
Mm.
on it's like a rotary kind of Leslie simulator pedal type of deal. He likes to use that effect on grown folks. There's another great one from 11.9.19 where he does the same thing. But just taking his time, getting jazzy. It's a very Mark Lettieri solo, which I love on this song. His playing style and his tone suit this song so well.
Yeah, his solo is super sexy. And I love like what Jameson's doing underneath. Like the drums,
Yes.
he's just they're super tight. He has this like forward feeling when he's playing drums. It's hard to describe, but there's something kind of like almost like contained and like really tight about the way that he drums. And it works so well under what Mark's doing with this like really sultry, like sexy feeling. It feels like a perfect balance to that.
And it's very driving throughout this solo.
Yeah.
Jameson is keeping the momentum going throughout this
Yeah.
whole solo. There's not a minute of letting up at
No,
all.
And Michael is just, like, laying it down and
Yep.
keeping it, like, super grounded under Mark's solo. The solo then gets, like, really bluesy, and you start hearing the vamp creep in, and it's almost like it kinda sets a fire under Mark even more, and this solo just absolutely soars off. It's so good.
Yeah, that shred. Then we get into the
Mhm.
outro, and Sean just like I think the first like 30 seconds of his solo, he's just playing one note, which is
Yeah, it's
funny
really
because
cool.
yeah, because he does like it's really cool how he uses that one note to make it not just sound like super repetitive and boring.
Yeah, it's
There's
weird.
one. It reminds me of there's this one time where Dave Koz, the saxophonist, sat in with Wolfpack in 2018,
Mm.
and I think it's like for like 40 seconds he plays one note over and over and over again, and it sounds awesome.
You have to, like, really know what you're doing to do that and
Yeah,
have it work well. Yeah, it adds this, like, frenetic feeling. It's, like, agitated almost, and it has that feeling all through the outro, and the synths are still being, like, laid down underneath it all. I just wrote in my notes, "Wow."
yeah,
It's really beautiful.
yeah, yeah. And then we've got two. It's pretty incredible 1-2 punch to open the show here. Great
Yeah.
set listing by Michael.
Yeah, I think that they sound super locked in, but playful too. This is probably my 2 favorite versions of either both of these songs, and it's the best, like, 1-2 opener we've heard out of any of the shows that we've listened to,
Mhm.
for me.
This is also one of my favorite eras of the band in terms of set lists because
Mm.
they're 2 years into touring the Culcha Vulcha material, and so it's not like in early 2017 we heard like 7 Culcha Vulcha songs plus What About Me and Lingus, right?
Mhm.
So now they're at the point where they're 2 years into this. They're like, okay, there's still going to be a bunch of Culcha stuff, but if you look at the set list, there are only 3 Culcha Vulcha songs in this show,
Yeah.
right? And so there's such a mix also from all eras. You have a White Cap, you have a Kite, you have a Thing of Gold, all from different albums. Already Wednesday, so there's a lot of variety going on here. And so I haven't seen the set list that they played in San Francisco the other day. Um, we're recording this just after they have begun their summer tour of a lot of festivals. But you know, maybe we're gonna see some more variety coming in.
Yeah, do you think they're gonna kind of, like, since they've already toured with Empire Central for a while, start, like, mixing it up?
Well, we'll see. I think
Mhm.
they're hitting Europe now. In a couple of weeks, they're hitting Europe for the third time since Empire Central debuted. And the first time they hit it, they did this summer festival circuit. Then they did a headlining tour in the fall, and so now they're back doing the summer festival circuit again. So I'm curious to see if they'll approach that more like, okay, we played these festivals last year, and we played all the Empire Central stuff, so we're gonna mix it up now. It is funny actually. Last year during that festival tour, they played Big Ugly,
No
which
kidding.
I'm envious of that festival crowd. But yeah, it's cool to look at the set listing, and I'm very interested to see. Obviously, especially because I'm seeing them next week, um, or last night at the time of this release. But yeah, I'm excited to see what happens. Still a lot of
Yeah, it's
Empire
so
Central songs I
interesting.
didn't see in Buffalo though. So
Yeah, and they're great too, so
yeah. So we move on into Kite here. Take a breath. Michael notes that he's going to let the tiny hairs in everybody's ears have a little bit of a breather. Yeah, it's such a great breather song always. And you get at the beginning, there's some of this like an undertone of like a spooky synth sound, which I'm not sure if it's Justin to start or if it's Sean immediately. But it sounds really, really cool.
absolutely, and there's, like, this super funky synth bass, which is under the piano chords and a trumpet solo on top
Yeah.
of it. Oh my god, it's like that classic mixture that Snarky Puppy does so well of like synthetic and modern sounds with like classic and traditional. I mean,
Yeah,
they do it so well.
I love uh, I love a Justin trumpet solo. We get a lot
Mhm.
more Maz usually, but Bill being in the lineup means that that Justin plays a lot more trumpet on the gig than he does when he's at the bigger keyboard station. And in my notes though, I said like his trumpet solo is great and all, but like this synth bass that's happening
Oh,
here from I believe Sean is amazing.
yeah, it's so funky. I love it.
Yeah, and it starts to happen here when you're listening to the show, just in case anyone is worried. There are weird skips and like it sounds like tempo changes in the show here and there that get kind of worse later on. But this is the first one where it shows up. That's just something to do with the tape. That is not you. That is not your speaker. That is not your phone. That is not your computer. It's just an issue with the recording, which is unfortunate, but still having a good time.
But still worth listening to. Like
Yeah.
doesn't I don't think interfere with the enjoying how much you can enjoy the show.
Yes. And then we get the master of this kind of vibe of piano solo, Bill Lawrence, on the outro. Man, it comes back obviously later in the show in Ready Wednesday, but Bill has this beautiful, like his beautiful, like classical piano playing style is so good in this very mellow setting. And just having all this space and just very minimal drums, minimal bass, and just Bill.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. There's a few moments in the show where that really happens and it's just when he does that and he takes you there, you just kind of go to another place. It's like one of those moments that's just kind of transcendent and there's just delicate percussion underneath, such a soft touch. It's just truly lovely.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Sean, starts to come in a little bit. Some organ, doing as he does, playing off of Bill, prodding Bill in some different directions, which is awesome. And this is cool because with a lot of times when a solo with Snarky Puppy will start mellow like this, it'll end up getting much bigger and much
Mm.
much louder by the end. This doesn't. It's very mellow and just kind of floats into the ending of the song, which I loved.
Yeah, it's nice. It's like not everything has to build up to a giant peak.
Yeah, and then speaking of building up, they immediately go into Tarova, which is complete shift back to balls to the walls, aggressive uh, music, which is you know it's great. And this one is awesome because you have Mark rhythm guitar and Sean doing Moog bass and organ as we get into this solo section here. And so just underneath Bullock's solo, they just sound excellent.
Yeah, it's super groovy, really dancey, and they just sound like they're just one organism. The band sounds so together.
Hmm.
They just sound like they're breathing together, they're moving together. It has this really kind of like connected feeling to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And you've got the
This is
bass just laying it down underneath. It's just monster. And then this like insane drums break is just so amazing. And someone is yelling, more, 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 go. I don't know who it is, but it's like you could feel it. There's nothing better than when a musician yells like that. It's the best.
you do have a point there. It's yeah, it sounds so good. I actually similar to the kite trumpet solo. I'm focusing more on the groove here than on the solo itself, which is really interesting when you get something like that. But of course, not when you have the drum sax break, which is as you mentioned, so good. And then Nate, crushing the outro. Nate is so good on this. Getting to see this live back in April. My first show, getting the Tarova and seeing Nate go in on the outro was awesome.
Oh my God, the crowd goes just completely wild when they come back in. It's just a totally tremendous ending to this song.
It is. It's so good. I love
Which
this
I
song.
think is a nice balance when they start Thing of Gold because it has just such a sweet feeling to the beginning of this song. You've got the
Mhm.
crowd starting to sing. It's just I really feel like we've said it before, but this is one of the best constructed set lists I think that I've heard from them. It's just there's
Mhm.
such a good flow to this set.
It's so complete, you know. It feels like it flows perfectly. And this is the last version of Tarova we will hear with this kind of with this arrangement. This is it.
Oh,
Next time we
bummer.
hear it, it will be in the newer 2019 arrangement. Ooh.
Ooh, something to look forward to.
Yes, I'm looking forward to you hearing that one. It'll be not for a few episodes, but it will come back. And it's going to be great. Thing of Gold, I feel like always works really well, kind of mid to late set in a
Mm,
show. It's a little bit mellow, has some energy to it, and then Sean's outro can kind of go anywhere.
yeah, that
And
makes
this is
sense.
also where much shorter solo section than some other versions, and we're going to hear also one of the other cool things they kind of did in 2019 is they started switching up the solo vamp to Thing of Gold. So in addition to this
Hmm.
regular one that we've heard in every version so far, sometimes they would do instead of this they would do like the vamp from Sign of the Times by Prince. Um,
Wow, that's
instead of
so
Thing of
cool.
Gold, or they would do Don't Stop the Music by Yarborough and Peoples, I think is the name of the band. But it's cool, and the solos have a different kind of vibe to them, obviously, because it's a different groove. So we'll hear some of those, obviously, as we move into the 2019 shows. But this one is great. This is, again, the keyboard layers. You have piano and you have
Mhm.
organ happening at the same time, and it sounds so good together.
So good. There's just I mean, the textures in the show because of those 3 keyboard players are just tremendous and
Yeah.
continue to stand out, and this one is beautiful.
Yeah. And then we get Sean on the outro, just nice organ on his own. Similar. We heard this back in episode 1, where he just, he churched it up. We heard him go in on the organ. Back then it was like their new organ. It was part of their sound. He's been playing organ with Snarky Puppy for a little bit longer at this point, but it sounds amazing, and it just weaves perfectly into the first notes of Big Ugly. This begins the last, you know, these 3 songs here just flow and segue into each other so well.
Yeah, I actually missed this segue. It was so smooth. I was listening to this and didn't realize that a new song had started, and I was like, "Oh, wow," it just sounded so perfectly coming out of Thing of Gold.
There we go. It just works. Sometimes things just work. And I really really love Big Ugly here. Again, this is the first time we're hearing it with 3 keyboards. We heard this back in from the spring 2017 show, where it was just Bill and Justin, and so here we have 3 keyboards. You have the organ happening in it, which again, the organ adds such a dimension to the band's sound that you don't get with just layers of synth or like a keyboard generated organ. It sounds so good, and obviously the layers and the build towards the end. Mark does amazing on the
Mhm.
outro solo, in my opinion. Here, I think it sounds amazing.
amazing in the show. I mean, he's such a great guitar player anyway, but he really stands out in some strong moments in the show to me. And the song has such an unsettled feeling to it. And I love that clav part and then how it bleeds into these like organ swells.
Yeah.
It's a really nice break to the kind of like chugging along feeling that the song has. So when you get that moment when it becomes more expansive with the swelling of the organ, it's really nice like juxtaposition.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. It's yeah. You can't beat this song really. Like this is and has been one of my favorite Snarky Puppy songs because of how many different layers there are happening at every time, the different sections, the way they flow to each other, and just the triumph of the final build. I love it. And then, one of my other favorite things, they did this obviously a bunch of times on this tour, having Bill around in this lineup of Big Ugly, and Bill goes right into the intro to Ready Wednesday, starting with playing off of the ending chords of Big Ugly. There's one
It's
version,
so beautiful.
yeah, there's one version from their SF Jazz residency a couple weeks later where Justin keeps that synth outro going as Bill starts.
Oh, cool.
Intro is much lengthier as well, but it's so good. And then again, Bill Lawrence, king of the quiet vibe piano.
It's incredible. It's so dramatic. Like his piano playing is emotional and dramatic. It's a really nice change of pace. And then after the solo section, it just takes this total shift to like funky synth layers. And it's just so different from what the beginning of the song sounds like.
Yeah, it's oh man, I love this song.
This is a great song. I really like it because then it turns into like disco dancing vibes and you hear Jameson on percussion just adding like so much nice texture.
Yeah, there's some really good versions from this tour as well. The one from Nashville on February 16th is great. You get some nice horn trading during the vamp there, but it's that drop into the disco vibe. Michael putting on that like synthy octave effect on his bass. It's
Yeah.
so funky, and this is all about the rhythm section.
Yeah.
It's all about the rhythm
Yeah.
section, And there's a little while, sometimes they'll jump right into the solo section. The soloist will just start going right away. Justin doesn't start right away. They kind of just like lay in the groove for a minute, enjoying the vibe.
Yeah, it's so vibey. And then I love how it kind of ends in this outro that's total full
Oh,
circle to the beginning of the
yeah,
song. It's again super dramatic and it has this like movie soundtrack. It's like watching someone you've loved forever but could never have, just like walk away for the last time. It's like devastating, it's sad. It puts this like complete journey to an end. I
mm,
love it.
yeah. It just it works. It
Mhm.
just works. This show is so good. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh. And then
Yeah, I
so
this is definitely probably my favorite show we've listened to so
there
far.
we go.
Yeah, yeah.
So next up, we've got the set closing Shofacon here. Sean, I've been real quiet all night long, but no longer.
I love that. There's like
Yeah.
this mellow vibe in the intro to Shufakon until Sean just yells that. It's so great. I've been
Hmm.
real quiet all night long. You're like, and then he gets the audience chanting like, "Hey, hey, hey." It's so great.
Yeah. And then Maz takes the solo here on Flugel again, a nice clean one. Amazing interplay with Michael during this solo here.
Yeah.
This is worth a listen. A lot of times, like in the last episode, especially even like Shofacon is just like, okay, they played Shofacon. We move on to the next song because there's not a ton of variety from version to version. This solo section is excellent and is well worth a listen.
Yeah, Moss sounds so effortless, and the band is just kind of drifting behind him with Michael just keeping it super steady. And I just love how this song gets into this like giant, deep funk. I really want to hear this song live just for that moment because the crowd is so hype and it's just like this funk. This is what I like really love about Snarky Puppy is that they can get so funky.
Yeah. And then, they leave. Crowd starts chanting Shofacon through the encore break. We heard that back in episode 1 where they, kind of took that chant, started playing off of it, and weaved it into Quartermaster. Well, they did it again. And this one is amazing. Michael, of course, starts it off. He comes back in. A little bit of synths coming in very, very, very gradually. Then Michael, obviously, I guess, gets the modulates us into the correct key for quartermaster, and just everyone slowly creeps in, and there's no quartermaster yet. He modulated into a different key, but they're still just playing on Shofkan here at the beginning, and it's so good.
This is one of the coolest segues I've
Jammy
heard them
Snarky
do.
Puppy.
Yeah, it's so jammy. It just totally evolves, and it's just like the kind of shit we love in the jam world. Like when songs bleed into each other, and we can do that full arrow on our little set lists because we're nerds. So I feel like this is like a true awesome segue
Is
moment.
it see? Yeah, is it a full arrow if the band leaves and the segue is from a crowd chant into the song? Like,
Ooh,
I don't
I don't
know.
know. This is a
I
real
don't
like
think that
nerd
counts.
technical moment. Maybe it doesn't, but then they pick it up where they were. So would it be just like a line
I
and
would
an
say it's
arrow?
like jam quartermaster,
Mm. Mm.
maybe chauffeur
Maybe.
con
I don't
jam.
hmm.
Something,
Maybe.
something to think about. Something to think about. But Sean was quiet for most of the show. He
He
is the
was.
leader here. On Talkbox, they're all they're just going in, right? The horns start to kind of bring in quartermaster vibe a little bit, but they're not there yet. Sean starts doing California Love on the talk box, except
That's so good.
instead of California knows how to party, it's Raleigh Durham knows how to party, which
Raleigh
really,
Durham. It's so good. It's sick. It's like he's using this talk box like a fucking boss. I mean,
yeah,
he is just like owning this thing. It's unbelievable.
yeah. And then when they finally do hit quartermaster, it's awesome because Sean starts like playing the first part of the melody and then going off on something else, and then brings it back and then something else. Then the horns just quietly come in.
I mean, this is amazing. They've got the crowd in the palm of their hand,
Yeah,
and they just don't feel like they're in a hurry at all. They're like, we're gonna get there when we want to get there, and
yeah.
they're just like, it just makes the payoff so good, and I love it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. But I mean, this reminds me a little bit of the 10, 13, 15 version we talked about in episode 2,
Mm-hmm.
just because of how laid back it is and how vibey it is. The speed starts to pick up after this once they get into quartermaster a little bit, but it's still slower than normal, and it still has this space and this improvisational quality to it that a lot of Snarky Puppy obviously doesn't have.
Yeah, and they're still actually playing with the California Love quotes, like
Yeah.
just like you can kind of hear it. They're like sprinkling them in. Really, really, really great. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
and this is also cool because in some quartermasters they'll start out really cool, and then the solo section will still just be like one person soloing, and then they'll get to the end,
Hmm.
whatever. This one they keep the jammy vibe going. Mark is doing his low end, funky stuff here. Bill on piano, Sean still on the talk box. It sounds amazing. Despite the fact that the tape starts skipping a ton during this track.
Yeah, but still worth it. And Mark's solo here is just like this low end strut he's doing is incredible. It's just such a strong moment for him. It's just, I love it. It's so great.
Yeah, and then the rest of the band gradually starts adding their own flavor to it. Bill starts to jump in a little bit more. Mark kind of takes a back seat and lets Bill take the lead for a little while. Sean hops in on the groove, with some synth happening. Justin adding some textures as well. Like, it's so good. And then Bill and Sean just start
Hmm.
trading solos, which is so good. I can just see Michael's face. I can
Yes.
picture him just like huge smile on his face, watching them go back and forth with each other. And man, they give them a little breakdown, like, whew.
Oh my God. And then Sean's like playing the talk box, almost like scratching it like a DJ would on a record. It's like he's doing these like weird little like noises, and It's so much fun. And above the piano, again, like another example of how they're able to balance these two totally different types of music like so well. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's great. And then, we just crash back into Quartermaster proper. We get the hymn ending. Michael plugs, is it his cousin's movie theater thing? I forget who it was.
Yeah, brother-in-law or cousin, I
Brother,
can't
a
remember, but
relative of his with a movie
relative.
theater, or a cool movie theater idea. Band intros, the whole thing. But the whole thing, the whole Quartermaster ends up being, around 20 minutes long, all told, which is just, you love to see a 20-minute track.
Yeah, and definitely dates the show being in 2018 because he's like talking about how you can like rent movies
I mean,
out
even
of
in 2018, like, were you renting movies?
I don't know, but it's
I feel
like
like I
I
haven't
don't
rented a movie since like 2009.
I know. I was like, "What year is this show?" But I thought, well, you definitely wouldn't do that now, but maybe I was in 2018. Who knows? That was a
Some
long time ago. I don't
people
remember
still
anything.
own a DVD player.
It's true. They do.
We have a VHS player in my house.
I have a really old one too. I have
Yeah.
some very old, productions of theater that I was in that I like to watch myself sometimes.
Yeah, we still have like a really old like TV like that's this thick.
I love
It's
that.
in like it's
Yes.
in like a cupboard though, like
Yeah.
you'd have to open it to watch and like it hasn't been opened in like a decade.
I love that. There's
Yeah.
probably some home movies of like Baby Ryan on there that are very cute.
Oh yeah, I think my dad digitized all those, but
Yeah.
they exist. So that's our Raleigh show here. Am I still pronouncing it right?
Raleigh.
Okay,
Yeah.
look at me go. I'm so proud of myself.
Proud of you.
Then we get our bonus track for today. We go fast forward a week and a half. They are in California at the Belly Up in Solana Beach, which is near San Diego. This is a very, very small room, very intimate show. And so, here we have this beautiful version of Gemini. Fans of this should go check it out. It's on YouTube with the Pro Shot audio on it. Great shot of the stage. And this is, the spacey part is cool. This is, for me, this is about Sean's outro solo. And there are a few versions from this tour where Sean takes the outro. This one in particular, it's really extended. He starts on that kind of like harmonica-y synthesizer patch that he loves, and just gradually switches to one hand to organ, both hands to organ, and it's just filled with emotion and euphoria, and just it's amazing. I love this version.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite Snarky Puppy songs, and the opening notes to the song get me every time. It just has that little riff. It's just so pretty, and this to me also just feels like one long solo from him. It's an absolutely gorgeous version, truly incredible musicianship, and it's just something that's just it's special to hear. It must have sounded amazing in the room.
Yeah, it is. And that is our show. That brings us to the end of the Culcha Vulcha era. We are now 2/3 the way through season 1 of Things of Gold, which is
Wow,
crazy to think about. 8 episodes in.
I'm
You
proud of
excited
us.
for the Immigrants era, Megan?
I am, yeah. I loved the Culcha Vulcha era, so I can only imagine how I'm gonna like this.
A whole new batch of songs. The whammy clav is going to be everywhere,
Ooh, that's
and it's
fun.
going to be awesome. We're moving into a new era for the next episode, people. Of course, we will be heading all the way to Japan for April
Ooh,
12th, 2019, from Kawasaki, Japan. This is a great show very early on. I believe this is only the second show of the year outside of the festival. But I'm really excited to talk about that. The immigrant songs in their early form before we move through the rest of the year. So, without further ado, thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Things of Gold. It has been an absolute pleasure, as always, talking to you, Megan, about Snarky Puppy.
yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, and of course, let us know your favorite parts of the show, as always. What other things that you like from February 2018, what other shows you think we and other people should check out. Share your recommendations. It's always key. And we will be back in 2 weeks with episode 9. So, everybody, have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.